Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review, so I hope you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from the UK, English language, released in the year 2006, directed by Simon Boyes and Adam Mason, and this film is called Broken. So Broken starts off with this woman. She's got a young child and she's going on a date on this particular evening. So when she gets home, she goes to bed and then all of a sudden she wakes up in a makeshift coffin. So she doesn't know how she got there, but when she breaks out of this coffin, she realises that she's smack bang in the middle of the woods. So no one can hear her screams, and so she has to find out what's going on. But it turns out she's been kidnapped by a mysterious man who's going to put her through tests of endurance to determine whether or not she is good enough to be his slave. So it's either she's going to be his slave or she's going to die. So she has to go through all this physical and mental torment in order to keep this guy happy, and then she's under the realization that if she's to survive this ordeal, she's going to have to escape her captor. So whether or not she can is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Broken. Straight away, I have to warn the audiences that this is one of the most harrowing experiences as far as on-screen violence that I've seen in a long time. This is a movie that takes me back to the days of the 70s, where horror films weren't afraid to really make an audience uncomfortable. They make audiences go through tests of endurance, to make an audience test their own limitations. And this is everything that a horror film should be. This is a movie that doesn't make you feel comfortable. It's not entertaining. This is a movie that shows you the boogeyman who hides in the corner of the room. And no matter how many romantic comedies you watch, the boogeyman is always there just waiting. And so you can turn the other cheek to the horrors of humanity, but it's going to be there, and it actually happens in real life. And I think that Broken really emulates what the boogeyman is, and he just makes one of the most harrowing and cruel experiences that you will see in a long time. So this is one of the most misogynistic films you will see. There's a lot of horrible situations being thrust upon women in this film, and that's something I really like. I like movies that don't make apologies. This is not a movie that cares about your feelings, and the horror genre has really lost that sort of aspect, in that it's all PG-13, it's watered down, so even non-horror fans can enjoy these films. But true horror is basically made for horror fans, hardcore horror fans, and I think Broken will really appeal to those kinds of fans, because it is a movie that doesn't show you goodness in humanity. It doesn't really promise a happy ending and sugarcoating things. So the on-screen violence is absolutely horrific, and that's by far the best part of this movie and the most memorable part of this film. But my only problem with the movie is the fact that it does rely on that way too much. So the overall low budget to this movie, I thought helped contribute to that very gritty feeling the film has, and it makes it a very surreal feeling as well, because there's only really one or two characters in the whole film for the majority of the film, and so that gives you almost a stage play kind of feel. And I think it was down to the limitations of its budget, but I just thought it created a very surreal and unusual story. So you've got the woods, which is basically a one setting. And so I just felt as though this was this woman's hell, that she was going through hell, she needed to escape it, and I just thought the atmosphere was just so dreaded and so harrowing that I just thought, okay, this is not really going to end very well. And I will say that the ending is one of the best endings I've seen in a long time, and I really appreciated the way that Simon Boyes and Adam Mason really capped off the experience. So the gore effects were absolutely phenomenal. One of the very cringeworthy violence. It's few and far between the violence, so it's not hitting you very frequently like films such as Saw. So I wouldn't say this is torture porn, but it is reveling in the really sadistic sort of treatment of these women. And so it realizes it's being provocative, and it doesn't really care, and so it makes no apologies. And as I said, that's everything that you want from a horror film. So I thought the acting was surprisingly competent for a film of this nature. I thought this woman, she had fairly authentic reactions to what was going on. I thought the mysterious villain in the film was somewhat creepy. I wouldn't say he's necessarily scary, which is another problem I have, which I'll go into a little bit later. But there was also another character in the film that I thought was incredibly annoying, and she was there basically to see really horrible things happen to her. So, as I said, on a whole, I thought the acting was fairly decent. I thought the limitation of characters actually played in its favour. And you've also got just a very haunting sort of score that's not overused, but it's used in the right places. So that's something I liked as well. So for a very low budget horror film, I thought that it was surprisingly competently made and competently acted. But this is where I get into my problems. Now, yes, the production is very good as far as the violence is concerned, but the movie is relying on its violence way too much, and so it's neglecting other things, the minor details that make a film very good. And so you got a story that you don't really know anything about. You don't know how this woman got there. You don't know anything about the woman. You don't know anything about this villain. He's very mysterious, but there are no answers to these questions. And now, I love ambiguous films. I love open-ended films that don't give you that comfort and sense of control, because it makes it even scarier. But there is no real scariness to this film. It's very shocking and it's very cringeworthy in the way that the violence takes place, but it's not really scary because you can't invest your time into the situation. Yes, she just woke up. Where is she? Well, why is she here? Why is the villain doing what he's doing? And so, yes, I can appreciate just leaving it open-ended, but a few questions answered would have given a little bit of depth to the emotion to the film. You don't really care for her as a person, you just care for her situation because of the violence that has been thrust upon her. So the violence is just plays that pivotal role, but I just think too much attention was put onto it. So after a while, you start to get a little bit bored, especially through the middle sections. I thought, all right, it's on repeat a little bit. There were some scenes that I felt was deja vu, and so I just thought that it was using all of its time and attention to actually shocking the audience, giving you a 1970s kind of feel where it was all about, you know, the video nasty era where a lot of these films were banned. I thought that that was kind of emulating what made those movies so memorable in not making apologies. But when you neglect all these other parts of the film, I just felt, okay, this is lacking in substance. Therefore, apart from the fact it's very violent, it's only going to really appeal to a specific kind of fan. If you're into your really horrific violence, then this is for you. But if you want something that's going to be an overall piece, then I think that Broken is sorely lacking. So that's the biggest problem. There are also a few moments in the film that I thought looked very cheap. And so, yes, you do have phenomenal gore effects, but there are other moments where I thought, okay, that didn't really feel right. And so there's got that really low budget feel, and I thought the mistakes from a low budget movie as a result of the low budget really do become apparent, and it does affect your enjoyment. But as I said, it's memorable, and I would recommend it for extreme horror fans because it is a very harrowing and misogynistic kind of film. But yeah, apart from that, I couldn't help but feel a little bit disappointed. So overall, for Broken, going to give it 2 stars. Still going to go recommended, but for only people who can stomach this kind of thing. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.